Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. The link between sex, creativity, and the sense of aliveness is strong. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on the Eros Evolution show here on OMTimes Radio and TV.
Hello, and welcome to Eros Evolution. Today, my name is Martha. I am a relationship counselor, clinical sexologist, and I don't have any guests today. In today's show, I'll be talking about 5 epic ways in which you can have better sex. And this is such a topic that I hold so close to my heart because, of course, besides being somebody who supports people around their sexuality, I also am someone who does have sex. And over the years, I have pulled everything that I've learned, kind of like through my personal experiences and also through my work with my clients to make sense of how to best explain the differences between people and the way they prefer to be sexual. And I know in our world, we do not like to put things into boxes and also to make it black and white. So a lot of what I'm sharing is really about shedding light on possible differences in which you and your partner may prefer to be sexual. So it's really meant for more like a guideline rather than definitive ways. So I really hope that you take these 5 ways with a pinch of salt, a big pinch of salt. And also, the advice that I'm going to be suggesting is applicable to people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. There's really no right or wrong around it. So I'm also very mindful of using languaging like men and women. But say if I use the words men and women, I've been caught out on it. And I think what people doesn't understand in my head, I'm actually talking about my personal experiences and professional experience working with people who are cisgender, heterosexual men, women. So when I say men, women, I'm very intentional by referring to heterosexual people. And when I say partners, I'm talking about in general. And this information I'm sharing is really applicable to all people. So I cannot speak of 4 people who are of different gender identities because I haven't really had that much experiences with them. So I still feel that what the 5 ways that I'll be sharing will be useful to all of you. So do take it in the spirit in which it's being shared. And I hope it's helpful to you. Okay, so like I mentioned, the 5 ways to be an epic lover I came across through my personal experiences, tried to make sense of it in my professional life, and I kept seeing this again and again happening with my clients. So for a very long time, I really didn't share this publicly. Only recently, I decided to share this in a simple way with well, basically, I never put my thoughts to paper until recently. So I had been communicating it. It kind of was all in my head, and did mention in private sessions, but never put pen to paper until recently. So as I started to do it, and I got a positive response, that was when I realized, hey, maybe I could turn it into an episode on Eros Evolution today. Okay, so having gone through the kind of background into it, I will just now launch into it. Okay, so the first one is as somebody who is in a female body, who identifies as heterosexual, a lot of times I found that when I started being sexual, that the way my partner was approaching me felt really jarring. It felt abrasive. It just didn't feel nice. However, I also had the opportunity to be with partners who were better at teasing the mood and doing extended foreplay. And so I started to have an idea of how I liked to be approached. So by that, what I mean is, personally, I would prefer the touch to be non-linear, meaning do not go directly for the genitals, not going directly for the breast and the vulva. Instead, focusing on the kissing, the cuddling, the stroking, and just all over the body, teasing out. So I call it non-linear, so meaning not directly going for the genitals. However, I did find in my personal experiences a lot of my partners guiding my hand and encouraging me to just go for their genitals. So here I am in a heterosexual interaction where almost all my partners prefer me to just go directly for their genitals, and I didn't like it if this was done to me. So the number one way to be an epic lover is to start to get a sense of, is my partner a more direct person or more non-linear person? So that's the first tip that I have for you. And this applies to people with different sexual orientation and gender identities, because it doesn't mean that just because you're a heterosexual man, you will always like it to be direct. It can mean you prefer the touch to be non-linear, and that is perfectly okay. This is just a way to navigate the languaging around how do I actually approach my partner. So in a lot of my work, I call it opposites attract. So if you're somebody who's non-linear like myself, so you may have a partner who is more direct approach, just go directly for their genitals. But from time to time, I did come across partners who were not like that, who were more sensual, and everything just felt magical when you are with someone who is very similar to you, because they get you and you get them. And that's really, really fun as well. And there's no right or wrong about it. It's not that opposites attract. You will definitely attract somebody who prefers a more direct approach. It just means that it is more likely to happen. And on those times that it doesn't happen, at least you have the languaging around, okay, so now I have a partner who is more non-linear, similar to me. And so this is just about making sense of the languaging around it. So I hope that makes sense to you. Am I a more direct approach kind of a person, or am I a more non-linear kind of a person? And if so, what is my partner? Is my partner the opposite? And if not, is my partner more of non-linear? So I know I'm talking about the both spectrums of it, and it could be, oh, my partner doesn't mind either, and my partner is open to both, or responds just as well with both, depending on their mood. And that's fine, but also seeing whether a majority of time they lean more towards one approach. So it's kind of like a guideline to support you, so that you kind of have a clue. It's like having a clue, rather than feeling totally clueless about the whole thing and not sure how to act about it. Okay, so now that I've gone into number one, the approach, now I go to number two, which is the touch. So I noticed that when I started being sexual, I noticed that a lot of my partners were touching me in ways that were too rough. It felt rough. It felt that my body was getting overstimulated too quickly. And what felt really, really nice on my body was when the touch was super soft and super slow. When it was soft, I'm talking about it as soft as like a feather. So almost triggering like goosebumps feeling, soft. And the slowness, I sometimes describe it like as slow as a tortoise, like really, really slow, or as slow as they can. And so what the soft slow does on my body is that it calms down my nervous system. It awakens my skin. And because it's soft and slow, I interpreted the soft and slow touch as intentionality. I interpreted the soft and slow touch as more care and more love. Somehow, when the touch was soft and slow, I interpreted it as love and connection, closeness, vulnerability. So even though it was just the way the touch was being rendered, however, the the way I was registering it was okay. I'm not being used as an object. I I I'm having more attention on me, and so it felt really good, and that really helped me to get turned on. So another thing about uh, this soft slow is this whole sense of sensuality around it. So when I talk about sensuality, I often link it to the senses of the person. So in this particular case, when the touch is soft and slow, the sensuality came from the way the touch was, which was making the person feel awakened through their body and awakening the body through touch. So somebody who is more sensuous will appreciate all the shades of the senses being stimulated, from the touch, from the smell around the room, from the feel of the sheets, and even the general ambience of the room, whether it was clean. Like these little things does affect somebody's ability to feel sexy and to feel open to intimacy, physical intimacy. So I'm describing myself and using that as a framework of helping you understand what I mean by the 5 epic ways. So the first one just now was direct. The second one is touch. So I started to describe soft, slow, and sensuous being uh, a possible way of their preference of touch. And so now I'm going to go to the other person who may have a tendency of preferring the touch to be what I call hard, fast, direct, and sexual. So these people would prefer the touch to be harder, a certain kind of a rhythm. They would prefer it to be direct, go directly for the genitals. They would prefer it to be hard. And their sexual style is more likely to be sexual. So rather than all the slowness, awakening the senses, they prefer to just go directly for the genitals. And when I refer sexual in this context, I'm referring to them preferring sex to be penis in vagina or penis in anus, kind of friction sex. So these people just, okay, all systems go. As long as I am excited, as long as I'm aroused, just go for it. So these people tend to prefer they associate sex as not just the whole body, but actually very much a genital focus, very much about the penetration. And penetration doesn't have to mean penis in vagina. Penetration could mean penis in anus, for people who identify as bisexual, gay, transgender, and also like digital penetration. Digital meaning like finger, or it could be with the use of a toy. So still very much about penetration. So when I talk about the once again, opposites attract. If you are a soft, slow, sensual person like myself, is there a possibility that you have a partner who prefers their sexual style to be hard, fast, direct, and sexual? So the touch to be faster, harder. And I have worked with heterosexual couples who then identify what I'm saying and say, oh my God, that's me. I like. So I noticed that in my work, even though I'm describing my personal experience and this is my preference, a lot of women who are heterosexual prefer the touch to be soft, slow, sensual, and then their partner prefer the touch to be hard, fast, direct, and sexual. And it's almost like a duck and chicken talking, and both of them having a very definitive preference and feeling very frustrated about, you don't get me. I've tried to tell me what I like and you are not giving me what I like. Why are you not giving me what I like? I have told you what I think I like, and or they have tried it and they really know that they like it, and then the partner is still not giving that to them, so they feel really frustrated. And so I have had to come in many times to try to get them to describe what they like. And in my experiences, a lot of times I noticed that that happens to heterosexual people. And but I also really do not like to once again emphasizing, this is just a generalization. It may be that a heterosexual woman prefers touch to be hard, fast, direct, and sexual as well, and that's nothing wrong with it. It's just a guideline. So I keep emphasizing this because I'm so afraid of being attacked for using the wrong languaging. It's just a framework to help you navigate yourself when regardless of what it is that you navigate, you prefer more of. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. We are just different. Everyone is different, and what I'm sharing is just some tips that may help. So what happens with a touch also is that so I'd like to share this little story, and this actually happens more than once, so I'm not just talking about one particular client. So one client came in and said they noticed this happening in their relationship, exactly this guideline that I mentioned, women preferring it to be soft, slow, sensual, and men preferring it to be hard, fast, direct. And I know I'm making generalizations. So this particular couple came in, and the guy said she doesn't get it. She doesn't like that I want it to be hard and fast. When she goes so slow on me, it doesn't make sense. I want to fall asleep. And then she asked me to go slow on her, and I don't get it. I don't get why she wants me to go soft and slow on her. It's so slow and so soft that I fall asleep. And I was like, excuse me, she's asking for what she needs, and you are dismissing what she has asked and making what she has asked for wrong, because it doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to her. So you really need to respect what she's asking for, and really honor the fact that she is just different from you. There's nothing wrong about her liking something different from you. And so just give it to her and see how it feels. But when it comes to you and your body, she cannot assume that you like it to be soft and slow. You are able to speak up that you like it to be hard and fast, and it doesn't need to make sense to her either, but she needs to respect that you like it to be harder and faster. So it was this whole, oh, right? Because I think what happens is that we have our preferences, we ask for it, we stumble upon it, and we may not have the languaging around explaining or advocating for ourselves the kind of touch that we like. But what is so frustrating is when your partner turns around and shames you for it and says there's something wrong with you for liking this, or what you like doesn't make sense. So it's a kind of gaslighting that what you're saying is not true. And that really makes people so frustrated when you have already asked for what you want and you still are not getting it. So when I was younger, and I do get sore, and I do go into pain very quickly. So I try asking for my partner to stimulate or touch me in a way that was slower and softer, slower and softer. And I noticed that I would keep repeating myself, like after after 3 to 5 times of repeating myself, and them doing exactly what they wanted to do anyway. That was when I felt, you know what, it really doesn't pay off to speak. It doesn't pay off to speak up in the bedroom. I've asked for what I want, and I'm telling you I'm in pain. I'm telling you that I'm sore, and yet they wouldn't do what I've asked them to do on what feels good for me. And so I got really frustrated and really, really angry that what's the point of communicating if you're just going to do what you want to do anyway? So what happened was, I thought that my lovers who just did what they wanted to do anyway were just selfish, or they were just bad communicators. They were not listening to me, or they're unable to listen to me, or they're making what I like wrong. And so I just let them do what they want to do. I felt angry, violated, and shut down towards that experience, and even shut down towards them, because if you are communicating your needs and your partner is not listening to you, at some point you do feel really unsafe with this person. So when I went to sex school, and we talked about the importance of communication, and it wasn't that I was for lack of communicating with my partner. Suddenly one day I realized, oh no, I didn't actually tell them more specifically how I wanted them to touch me. I was communicating softer and slower, but I wasn't communicating how much softer and slower. So for instance, being able to say something like 50% softer, 50% softer would be so useful to somebody who actually thinks in very literal terms, that they needed more specific feedback. And so I own my side of my pain that I have been experiencing over the years, and also my frustration around sex, because even though I was communicating softly and slow, I wasn't communicating even more clearly how slow and how soft. So that was something that was like a big epiphany for me. Another thing that came up for me as I became a sex educator, and I read a lot about sexuality and better sexual experiences all the time, was one day I stumbled upon this little bit of a nugget of information that uh, okay, so anyway, before I go into that, when I was in sex school, I was taught that for a very long time, the medical industry, doctors, they would look at women as a smaller version of a man. And so they were just giving, they would do all this research around medication for men, um, but then when it came to diagnosing and prescribing dosages of medication to women, they just gave us a smaller dosage based on the fact that our body was just smaller. So it was like if a woman is 20% smaller, then they would give like 20% less of that particular dosage. But there wasn't enough research around around medicine for women, and they found out that men and women actually experience effects differently, and they actually um, respond to pain differently. So, heterosexual women, um, cisgender people who want to have babies, they they I mean, okay, I'm just going to say, for women, a lot of times we are told that, oh, we are very strong because we can give birth. But the piece of nugget that I came across was that uh, women, or people in female bodies, tend to have they have 20% um, thinner skin than men. So if we are thinner, we have skin that is 20% thinner than men, regardless of your gender identity. Uh, what happens is that, could this explain why a lot of women or people in female bodies prefer touch to be soft, slow, and sensuous? Because we are actually feeling sensation and also pain differently. So this lit up a light bulb in my body, which explained to me finally why I prefer touch to be soft, slow, sensuous, whereas I had partners who preferred touch to be harder and faster and more directly and also more sexual. Um, so that, I hope, wraps up that piece around touch. So far, I have described. So today I'm talking about five ways to be an epic lover, and so far I've described approach. So for the approach to be going directly to the genitals or not directly to the genitals, going, for instance, all over the body, treating the body as a magical wonderland. The second one is touch. Are you somebody who prefers touch to be soft, slow, sensuous, or are you somebody who prefers touch to be hard, fast, direct? And if so, what about your partner? Maybe you are with your opposite, or maybe you are with somebody who is more of a same with you, who also prefers touch to be soft, slow, sensuous, for instance. So in that case, you kind of have a little guide, clues of how you can better approach your partner. So here I'm just giving you the languaging around it, and it's up to you to treat this as little nuggets of clues on how you can be better in terms of approaching your partner, in terms of being a better lover for your partner. So there are 3 more points that I want to cover. The third one is build up. So when it comes to building up the sexual sensation, pleasure, and we are talking about building up so that one can then lead to orgasm, ejaculation. So you approach them in this way, and then you touch them in a certain way, and then the build up, I call it a variety or consistency. So some people prefer the build up to be you do a whole bunch of things, different things. Some people prefer the build up to be consistent. So in order, as you get more and more sexually excited, in order for somebody to go over the edge to orgasm, we all need a certain consistency. However, is the build up more exciting for the person if they are doing different things, a whole bunch of different things, variety, or are they more into doing the same old? They like having sex in the same way. Or you can call it routine sex, and it's just different for different people. So you want to use that also as a framework. Is your partner somebody who likes more variety in the bedroom, doing different things to them and doing new things to them? Or is your partner somebody who likes the pressure, the touch, the rhythm to be more consistent? Or are they also somebody who prefers the sex to be pretty much always the same thing? So that is the third way of being an epic lover. And we have a break, and we'll be back after this break.
OMTimes TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, we are back. And welcome to Eros Evolution. In today's episode, we're talking about 5 ways to be an epic lover. And just before the break, I was talking about giving some suggestions. The first one is the way you approach your partner. The second one is the way you touch your partner. The third one is the build up towards the peak, whether your partner prefers more variety or through the whole session, or your partner prefers more consistency through the whole session, partner being a more routine kind of a person. So people who like a more variety in the bedroom would not like to do things in the same way all the time. So what happens when you are somebody who likes things to be same old? If it's not broken, don't fix it. But you are with a partner who feels bored easily and so wants more variety in the bedroom. So it can be very frustrating for somebody who likes more variety in the bedroom to be with somebody who likes more routine sex. So the person with who likes more variety in the bedroom may sometimes come to me and ask me, how do I introduce new things to the bedroom? My partner is resistant to it. My partner is not open to having sex in a different way. So this is when I will suggest to the person who likes more variety or the person who would like to introduce new things to the bedroom to be very gentle with the partner, not just talk about what they would like to try, but also why they like to try it. It doesn't have to be that you figured everything out, that you know you love it. It could be you genuinely have not tried this before and you're curious about it. So when your partner who is resistant to change, who prefers consistency, to immediately shut you down, it's very easy to say no. So the person who wants to try something new might feel really discouraged, and it's really important to not take it personal. Do not treat this as a rejection of you or of your love, or that they don't love you enough, or they don't care enough to try, but rather that don't take it personal, as in it could be all about them being a creature of habit and not being willing, ready to try new things. It's scary for them. So what could you do to make it less scary for them, and bearing in mind not take it personal? So do not accept their first no and as an absolute no, because you have to understand, if someone is resistant to change and resistant to things that are new, that it's really important to be gentle with them and to see where they're coming from as well. So rather than say something like, oh, should we try this, or could we try this, and then they immediately say no, you can go one step further rather than shut down and just treat it as, oh, okay, I guess then I don't know where to go with that. Instead of doing that, you can actually invite a dialogue and say, may I know uh, how you feel about it. You're saying no. I'm hearing that you're saying no, and I want to respect you for it. But I'm just curious, why is this a no for you? I just want to understand you better. So when you start to have a dialogue around it, then you can see what actually is the reason they're saying no, so that maybe you can meet them where they're at. So for instance, somebody who says they don't like blindfolds, or they don't want to use blindfolds in the bedroom, and they say no. Ask them why they are not okay with blindfolds. Ask them what blindfolds makes them feel. And then maybe you can offer an option like, for instance, we don't use the blindfold on you, we use the blindfold on me instead. And don't worry about using it on me and assuming that just because we use it on me, that I'm going to insist that we use it on you. This tit for tat, fairness kind of a thing. So if they hear that you are open to trying blindfolds on you and there's nothing about forcing them, then they might be more open to trying blindfolds with you, because it's using blindfolds on you and not on them. And then the next thing is, after trying blindfolds on you, you can share off your experience and how it makes you feel. And what this does, it invokes a spirit of curiosity and playfulness, because you had a good experience and you're describing it, and then they get curious about it. And what happens is, now there's a dialogue around it. So then you can start to invite them by saying, well, we tried blindfolds on me and it was really fun, and I would love to try it on you. So what would it take for you to be willing to try blindfolds for a while? So how about we create safety about trying blindfolds on you? For instance, we try it for 30 seconds and see how you feel. Uh, um, and you can come up with code words or safety signals or time limits, so that your partner is more willing to try it on you. So for instance, okay, why don't we just try the blindfolds on you, but I'm not going to do I'm not going to sit on you and start grinding on you and having penetrative sex. What I'll do is I'll do this instead, and that's it. So being able to create safety is so important in introducing somebody who prefers things to be the same way, and slowly invoking variety. Another tip that I have around a variety, besides breaking down to smaller steps, talking to them, uh, checking what is their lowest common denominator of trying something new, is maybe do not introduce too many new things at the same time. So just one new thing. So at the start of the session, being able to talk about it and saying, I would like to try this. This is how I would like to try. And this is what it would mean to me. And this is what success would look like. And then partner will feel a lot less intimidated. Also, not talking about it just before sex. Like there's this some kind of, we're wasting time talking. Even being able to talk about trying new things before you try it, like way before you try it. And It's also another tip that I have around navigating working with people who are resistant to trying new things in the bedroom. So that's the third tip that I have, all the build up. And then I talked about build up being variety and consistency. The fourth tip, the fourth way to be an epic lover, okay, this is really, really super powerful and super simple, is that you mirror them. Okay, you mirror your partner. So if your partner likes approach to be direct, then you do direct. You know, they're doing it to you, then you do it back to them. If your partner is liking a hard, fast, sexual, but you are not, but it doesn't really matter. Throw that out the window for the moment and just mirror them. Do to them what they do back to you. A lot of times we do to our partners, not because we are cruel, mean people, like what I assumed when I was younger, because they were not taking my feedback. They were doing to me because that felt good to them. That's their natural instinct. And because it's their natural instinct, it feels good to them. They assume, they project onto you that they think that that's what you like. And sometimes a lot of people will say, why should I go along with what they like? It's wrong. They should listen to me. They should stop. But what if you are with somebody who doesn't have a lot of sex education around themselves, that they are not very aware of the differences, that they haven't had any of these embodied experience, that they're like behaving like a little puppy, like super excited around sex, and associating this super excitedness and this like being very rough around sex, associating that as passionate. What if they never meant any harm? And in order to get them to calm down, sometimes one of the ways is to do what they like, do it their way, let them feel seen, let them feel heard, let them feel validated, and then introducing to them, you know, we did it your way, and I hope you like it, but it's not really the thing that I like the most. So then being able to then share and introduce some of the things that you like instead. So this creates a win-win because they feel seen and heard. You've mirrored them, you've done it their way, and now they are more open to doing it your way because they may not understand. They now starts to dawn on them that actually what they were doing, it could be better for you. So this is where you can be very gentle by saying, hey, how about we try this today? Or hey, for people who have difficulties actually articulating what they like, you could say something like, um, I, 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 I would like to try something, but I'm not sure how to explain it. So can I just do it on you? And then after that, you do it back to me. So I call it train the trainer. You just show them what you like. So it's much easier to then shift things around. So I often say, yeah, you know, we have our definitive preferences, and it's okay to do it sometimes their way, but it's also just as important to speak up for yourself and to make sure that you do it your way some of the time, and being flexible around that. Being able, because it gets very frustrating if you're always doing it their way and you're always feeling like you're bending over backwards and you're not getting what you really like. So can you begin to see that a lot of what I'm describing is also about advocating for yourself and treating the whole way that you are having sex as not a right and wrong. So this is where a lot of people throw around the word sexual chemistry. I guess we don't fit well together. I guess we don't get each other, because if we get each other, we shouldn't need to communicate about this. I think that's totally untrue. Okay. So the fifth tip that I have for you is a very big piece around communication. So I talked about 5 epic ways. The first one being approach, the second one being touch, the third one being build up, the fourth one being mirroring them, and then the fifth one is now sexual communication. So let's backtrack a little bit to mirroring them. So when I talk about mirroring them, and I'm talking about the way they approach, the way they touch, the way they prefer variety or consistency, but the mirroring can also be where they touch you. So for instance, if they always have the tendency to go for your ear or the back of your neck or a certain part of your body that maybe you don't really like, but notice enough of what they're doing so that you do it back to them and see what's their response. Because sometimes what they're doing to you doesn't really work for you, but it's what they like. And so when you do it at that sweet spot that they like, then it's going to be that, wow, you get me. Wow, it's so great. wow, you're so good, wow, you're so intuitive. But in reality, what it's doing with the mirroring is that they are unconsciously, subconsciously asking you to do it for them, but they may have difficulties articulating it. So that's that whole, it's so difficult to describe everything that you like to the T. So when they do it on you, sometimes it's like, okay, it's not really working for me. It's not really like um, it's not really like um, doing anything for me. But why do they keep doing it? Do they think that I like it? So that was kind of how I came across it, because I was like, why do they keep doing this to me? I didn't say that I like it. Why do they keep doing this to me? And then I was like, maybe I do it back to them and see what happens. And so that's how I stumbled upon the mirroring. When you mirror someone, that you know, you are like it's like jamming, you know, like in music, you know, you jam together, you kind of listen to what the other person is doing, and then you kind of follow along. And then it's like a dance, you follow along, and then you put like this extra beat, and then they follow you. And so this jamming of this is like a dance. So what if you do some of what they like, and then you can kind of intuitively, even without words, kind of get them to do what you like. So the mirroring can also be mirroring their breath. If you mirror their breath, you know, you breathe just like with them, you breathe in an excited way, you breathe in a calming way, they feel connected to you in a non-verbal way. And that's going to be so amazing to feel that you're in sync with someone, to have that feeling that you're one. Okay, is another thing that I want to mention about mirroring. Okay, so now let's moving on to sexual communication. It's a really big piece, okay, around sexual communication. And I was very fortunate that this was something that me and my partner, my first sexual partner, did. And so I always had that whole thing around communication being such an important part of not making assumptions around sexual activity. And it was only later when I started talking about sex with my friends and became a sexologist, working with clients, that I started to realize so many people do not talk about sex during sex. A lot of people do not talk about sex at all. A lot of people are having sex. A lot of my clients, a lot of people that I know of, they are having sex, but they don't talk about sex. So I realized that the way that I was having sex, because it was very much influenced by my first partner, was very different from anybody else that I know of. So now I'm going to talk about the framework of communication that me and my partner used to do. So the first one was when I was new to sex. My partner was very gentle to me. And so before a sex session, we would call it a session, he would sit me down, and then he'll say, okay, we are not going to have a session. And I was like, oh, is this what people do? They talk about the session before session. So I didn't know better, right? Because it was my first partner. And but he would do that. He'll say, okay, we are not going to have a session. And I'm like, okay. So how are you feeling? Are you like tired? Are you thirsty? Are you sleepy? Are you hungry? And depending on what I'm feeling, do you need to pee? Depending on what I'm feeling, then we will address some of that immediately. Meaning, like, if I needed to pee, go pee. If I'm thirsty, drink. But if I'm hungry, then he would say, okay, fine. Since you're hungry, then let's have a shorter section. Let's have half an hour. Do you think you can wait half an hour? So before sex, we would actually do what I started to then call a check-in. So he would do a physical check-in. And then we would then do a kind of like emotional check-in, like we're okay, like we're cool, maybe like we had a fight or whatever, and maybe we'll like address that then, or maybe we'll say something like, let's talk about that later. And then fulfilling their promise of talking to that later as in half an hour later, or one day later, or over the weekend, for instance. So we'll do a physical check-in, emotional check-in, like how are we as a couple, and then or in some cases, maybe you're not in a couple relationship, and that's fine, but able to talk about how you're feeling about each other emotionally can also be a check-in. And then we do the mental check-in. So the mental check-in can be linked to your intention of the session, can be linked to your fears around the session. So the mental check-in could be, so the last time this happened, how are you feeling about this? Should we try it today? So, or saying like, the last time this happened, we don't want to do this again. So this is what we're not going to do. How do you feel about that? So mentally, how you feel about it. Another mental kind of assurance that my partner would do is saying something like, so just try to keep an open mind, just be positive. Um, so mentally making sure that we are both on the same page. So this is where after the check-in, you can also go into your very quickly go into your intention around the session. Like in this session, what are we trying to accomplish? Like, is this session for me to perform hand job, blow job on you, or is this session about you like helping me to have an orgasm, or like practicing fingering, or is this session like trying a new sex toy? So like being able to talk about it rather than pounce it onto your partner. So the check-in, physical, mental, emotional, and then the intention, and then maybe you can articulate your fears around the session, and also talking about what you would do after the session, so that you continue the connection, the relationship that you have with the person. So for instance, like, hey, after this session I have to run off, but I would love to like check in with you, I would love to talk to you later in this week, say on Wednesday. So like being able to talk about the way forward would be really great, because it doesn't make the person feel that they are left hanging. So this is the whole before that me and my partner used to do. Imagine like this was my first sexual partner, and we did this every single session. We did this before every single session. And so for the life of me, I couldn't understand why a lot of people later on when I did hookups and stuff, for the life of me, it just doesn't feel good when we didn't really just talk about sex a little bit before sex. And so I later on had to be my own advocate for creating safety for myself. It's not about control. It's not about power over someone. It's really about safety. Because if I don't know what you are thinking, then it's more likely that it's going to be a less so-called successful or pleasurable experience for both of us. In order to create a win, the communication is so important. So we talk about the before, and when I start going into this so-called framework of the communication, I think some people get intimidated. Wow, there are so many things. Wow, I don't know how to do this. Wow, it seems like it's very difficult. Wow, it seems like it takes a very long time. It doesn't have to take a long time. It can be literally as fast as 1 minute. So for instance, let me demonstrate this. Okay, so let's say you do a check-in, and then you say, hey, so just to check, like, you're open to having sex with me, and so how are you feeling? Are you doing okay? Do you need to use the bathroom? And at this point, even if you didn't ask them whether they're hungry, you just say, do you need to use the bathroom? Are you like okay? It gives them an opportunity to say whether they're not okay or they need something. And so you don't have to go into it extensively, like what my partner would do, but you could just go into it a little bit and go through this framework. So coming back to my demonstration, so you can go into, hey, we're gonna have you're open to having sex with me, so are you like okay? Is there anything that you would like to tell me? So this is what I'm thinking that I would like to do. What do you think about it? And what I would not like to have happen is this. So it can literally take less than a minute. So do not be intimidated by the idea of us talking about sex a little bit before sex, because what this does is it creates safety. Both of you are on the same wavelength. Then there's also less second guessing. So now let's move on to during. So what happens during sex? So the during of the sex is really, having talked about it, the during of the sex is really a little bit going into the unknown. You can have the best of intentions. Can have the desire, like you really want to please your partner and things like that during. However, sometimes communication during sex can be really tricky for some people. Some people really do not like to talk about sex during sex because they, and I'm making some assumptions, but it seems almost as if there's this magical spell of sex that is so mystical and magical and sacred that sometimes people do not want to break the spell of the moment, and so they may have difficulty speaking up. So what I've started to suggest to my clients who really need communication during sex itself is to ask themselves, are you with someone who is more of a open-ended question kind of a person during sex, or more close-ended kind of a person during sex? So rather than expect no communication during sex, how about if you need to communicate at a level that was comfortable to your partner? So if your partner was a more close-ended question kind of person, then you ask questions not on a let's chit chat during sex kind of a person, but more like, oh, let's ask questions on the need to ask basis. So for instance, asking them questions close-ended like, are you okay? So then it's very easy for them to say yes or no, and they can even say yes or no by nodding their head or shaking their head without needing to say words. So then they don't break the magical spell of sex. So asking them questions on the need to ask basis, framing it as a close-ended question so they can nod their head or shake their head. So they can also use signals or code words, for instance, hand gestures. So when it comes to during sex, close-ended questions can be around, are you okay? Are you in pain? Can I continue? Is this pressure, rhythm, technique? Okay. Are you close to coming? So this is where all the nodding and shaking of head can really help. So this is one way of navigating when someone has lack of practice around communication during sex or difficulties communicating during sex. You can kind of use this as a supporting way of communicating about sex during, before, or after. Close-ended or open-ended questions. So now let's go into the after. So after sex, what do you do about after? So a lot of people just roll over and fall asleep, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But some people, they would love to have some kind of continuation of the connection, and they would love to have some intimacy and also some learning of each other. So this is when the communication of sex would be a great way to get feedback about the session. So some questions that you can ask after sex, and it doesn't have to be immediately after. It can be the next day. It can be after you nap and then you start talking about it. So it doesn't have to be like immediately after. It can be immediately after if your partner is open to it, or it can be after you have a nap, or it can be the day after or the week after. Or the next session, you can actually start to do a little bit of debrief before you have sex again. So anything and at any point after is what I'm trying to say. So after sex, some of the things that you can ask, and be very mindful. I intentionally ask open-ended questions so that they can say as little or as much as they would like. Meaning, how was it? How was the session? You can just ask that, and your partner may be somebody who doesn't really talk so much. Some partner who's non-communicative or even non-verbal. They might point to pictures or words. However, when it comes to the after, how was it? So it's like a freestyle. So let's say you have a partner who's not very communicative, and then you ask the question, how was it? And your partner says something like very vague, like, okay, it was good, and doesn't say anything else. So as somebody who would like to encourage communication, so then you can share your side of the story, and then you can say, is it okay if I share how it was for me? Ask for permission, and then you share. Okay, knowing that they have only shared like one or two words, maybe you be very mindful of not flooding them by going on and on for like half an hour or 10 minutes or something like that, but sharing a little bit and then coaxing it out of them. So that was how it was for me, but I was just curious, what was good about it for you? Like, what did you like? Okay, so it's really quite demoralizing if everything about sex was bad, or they say, yeah, it was good. Then you can ask them, okay, so I'm really curious, like, what was good about it? Could you give me like an example, like in what way was it good for you? And if they are very hesitant to share with you, this is when you can say, I really want to know because I really care about you. I want to get to know you better. That's all. So talk in a very light hearted way and in somewhat of a detached way. So these are some tips around talking about sex after sex. How was it? What was good about it? What would make it better? And then also what should we try next time? So on that note, I hope that these 5 ways to be an epic lover has been useful to you. The first one is approach, second is touch, third one is build up, fourth one is mirror, and then communication. So do share with me on the link below whether this session has been useful. What did you learn? And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My website is Eros Coaching, that's eroscoaching.com, and my website is drmarthalee@eroscoaching.com. You can find this show at eroscoaching.com/Eros Evolution Show. And do subscribe to my mailing list so you never miss a thing. So next week, I'm going to be having my friends to talk about what it's like being mothers. In Singapore, we're going to have Mother's Day, and I have my friend Carol Gawker and Felicia Tan sharing their relationship being mothers, and also around their relationship with their sexuality. So this has been Martha, and thank you for listening to Eros Evolution. Bye.